Luke, what's up, dude? Thank you for your patience today. We had a little bit of a technical glitch earlier in the show, and it's delayed us just a hair. So thanks, dude. I'm sure you weren't planning on the tweet that was the shot heard around the world, the splitting of the atom. Donald Trump's on the Epstein list from Elon Musk, and that's why they haven't released it. Given the fact we've covered this a little bit earlier in the show, but, you know, given what you know about the subject matter, what did you think about that? And I want to sort of zoom out the aperture.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking. I think all of us, when we read that tweet, we were kind of just dropped a major bomb in our laps. Being like, how in the world are we gonna, react to this? And I think it was just shocking. I was at the doctor's office. I was like, no freaking way. I was like looking. I was like, does everyone even understand like what's going on here? It was a very, very big deal. And, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to this conversation. There's still so much information that we do not know about, especially when it comes to Epstein, his scientific experiments with Bill Gates, his baby ranch, where he was trying to impregnate 20 women at a time. He has a lot more connections to Silicon Valley than we previously thought he had before, especially with the latest revelation that came out with Peter Thiel. There's also other connections with Epstein and Elon Musk. Let's not forget that, as well as a lot of other Silicon Valley kind of tech elites. And I have sources that are telling me that Elon once previously did meet with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm working on getting some actual factual information about this. But listen, I think you could agree, and we could all agree here, we do not have enough of the information. We only are still scratching at the surface here when it comes to this very strange, bewildering, wild story when the biggest institutions in our society came together and ran an international child trafficking and extortion operation. Okay. The fact that we still don't have the truth here, I think Donald Trump needs to release this information so it's not weaponized against him. But also, more importantly, a lot of the top players that were involved, they're some of his biggest political enemies. And it's a way of defanging the intel agencies. It's a way of taking away a lot of the bigger threats against Donald Trump. Because when you look at that top list, when you look at all the individuals involved here, there's a lot of Kamala Harris supporters there. Okay. There's a lot of big time Democrats, big time liberals there. And to me, this has definitely opened up a can of worms that I think no one was expecting. But out of the kind of messy battle here, I think the conclusion is let's just try to focus on getting the truth out here.
What do you think about, and this is my newest favorite conspiracy theory, and I much like many of the conspiracy theories I like, I hope that it's right, that this was a play, this was a plot in order to get Democrats on board with releasing all of the Epstein list. I know Hillary Clinton's going, what the F, guys, right? But that this was 7D chess in order to try and trick libs into supporting the release of the Epstein documents.
Yeah, we don't need the support of the libs to do that. But I don't think the libs know what they're calling for, especially the Democratic political party. With how many times Bill Clinton ditched his Secret Service to be on that plane? All right. Yeah. And then we're talking about a lot of other big super donors for the Democratic political class that were interconnected with Epstein. There's that famous tweet by the Democrats on Twitter yesterday, and everyone responded to it with Hillary Clinton being like, what?
Yeah.
We're not going to allow this to happen. Now, there's a lot of different conspiracies out there. There's a conspiracy that there's an underhanded kind of approach against Donald Trump in order to kind of oust him and impeach him. Listen, when it comes to the Elon Trump debate, I think there's more information supporting Trump's case here. Okay. We have the victim's lawyer, Bradley Edwards, coming forward a few years ago and talking about how Donald Trump was actually the one that helped out the victims and participated when it came to the trial against Jeffrey Epstein. Don Jr. told me personally that Epstein was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for inappropriate behavior. I think Elon got a little emotional there. And listen, what he said isn't wrong. We know Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump hung out together before. Like, we have that famous Trump clip and that famous Trump quote saying he liked them young. Okay, so it wasn't a misstatement, but the fact that we still don't have a lot of the information, that we have so many weird situations here, creates a scenario where there's fuel and there's a lot of smoke. And I think, at this moment in time, we need as much disclosure, as much transparency as possible here. There's also the fact that, the deep state was throwing everything they could at Donald Trump. If they had compromise against Donald Trump, they would have been using it already to try to stop him from becoming the next president of the United States. And then Trump's own DOJ went to Jeffrey Epstein when he was arrested, when he was at that corrupted jailhouse, and said, give us dirt on Donald Trump. We're going to make it easy on you. We'll slap you on the wrist. This is according to Jeffrey Epstein's own cellmate, who came out and said, yeah, they were trying to get Epstein to squeal on Trump. And then Epstein's lawyer came out and said, yeah, he didn't have anything on Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's got nothing. In fact, Trump was the only person from the elites in Palm Beach that helped prosecute and put Jeffrey Epstein away. According to sources on the Palm Beach police force, Trump was the person who tipped them off to the Epstein predator ring after permanently banning Epstein from his clubs. That's according to James Patterson, who witnessed it himself. And so it's like there's so much evidence. And then also, like, if you had criminal implication in all of this, why did Donald Trump in 2015 at CPAC famously, like, he was the first guy to connect Bill Clinton, Epstein, and the island? Nobody even knew about it at the time. And there's a famous clip where Donald Trump's like, yeah, Bill Clinton's got a lot of problems with Jeffrey Epstein and his island. It goes over everybody's head, probably everybody except for Luke, who is still locked in even 10 years ago. But like, everyone's like, who and what? Trump was trying to tell us like a decade ago, man.
Yeah.
And
independent media was too. We were talking about it as the corporate media was worshiping this guy. They were talking about how great of a philanthropist, how big of a big money donor, how charitable he was. And I'm like, wait, this is the same guy that was just convicted of being an offender? Are you kidding me here? So independent media, we've been on top of this for a very long time, and there's a lot of very weird, strange connections, especially with the royal family, especially with Bill Gates, especially with Hollywood. I mean, the rabbit hole goes down deep, but we don't know still a lot of information that I think should be released publicly.
Okay, so let's go there. This is this used to be the single biggest battle on the internet, which is what's going on with Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, and why can't they get this information out? I'd like for you to put up the tweet right there, please, if you would, Colden. This is just a small scintilla of the mountain of information that we have from the federal government's own files. You can see boxes of hard drives marked as evidence. The CDs, I constantly put this up on the program to say, like, listen, the CDs have nudes written on them in Jeffrey Epstein's own handwriting. And I'm not a pervert. I don't need to see that. What I need to do is I need to see a name and evidence of what the hell this operation really was. Right there is a bag of diamonds. They said inside of this case, this safe that we cracked is a bag of diamonds and a bag of passports. Well, can you tell us the countries that gave Jeffrey Epstein passports? That seems material and strange. And where exactly do you get a bag of diamonds, Luke? We've never seen any of this.
Yeah,
this has to be sitting somewhere. Can you please elucidate for me, like, why have we never seen any of this? Why is the world's biggest predator being protected by our government?
As he was a registered offender, not needing to follow any of the protocols like registered offenders have to do. Registered offenders can't be near school zones, right? He was able to fly in and out. He was able to skirt all of the banking regulations. So he was able to do whatever he wanted to do. A lot of people also forget this. He had his own personal office and office hours inside of Harvard, right? He was around all of the Harvard students walking all the way around him. And now we're finding out that he was working on some underhanded, crazy eugenics, population control like experiments. What? He was working on dolls that have cameras inside of them. He was working on impregnating 20 women at a time at his Zorro ranch that the FBI never even investigated or looked into. There was a ranch that he had in New Mexico because he was connected to Bill Richardson. I remember confronting Bill Richardson, major big Democratic Party guy. He ran for president of the United States. He was also a big member of the Bohemian Grove, and he was sweating like a dirty lady in church when we asked him, hey, tell us about all the weird kind of stuff that you do with, workers of the night. I know we're still on YouTube, so we're going to be family friendly here. But he was freaking out. He was also connected to the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Zorro Ranch, you couldn't even drive into. You needed a helicopter to get there. The FBI still never investigated it. This is why when this whole case kind of opened up here, I was like, okay, guys, there's multiple properties you guys need to look into. I said, hey, there's multiple witnesses you need to talk to. As soon as the whole Virginia Giuffre scandal kind of broke here, I was publicly saying, send FBI agents there. Talk to her, get her story, because it's only going to be a matter of time, whether it's a meltdown or an orchestrated type of thing to look like a meltdown to take her out, that we need more details, more information here to come forward and to just highlight everything to take this case seriously. Sadly, I don't believe this case is being taken seriously, and there's a lot of conflict of interest. There's a lot of big powers, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Israel or Thiel, there's so many different people involved here. The big banks are involved here. Silicon Valley's involved here, that this is a very big kind of crazy tangled web. And I'm just saying, please give the American people transparency, because not only are these predators politically active against Donald Trump now, but also, more importantly, they're still hurting children as we're speaking right now. There's still thousands. And this is a scale. When I went to the British Virgin Islands to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's island, I was talking to everyone. And I was like, okay, tell me the scale here. People are saying it's only like 17-year-olds that look like they're 18 or older. Is that the case? No, they were telling me specifically 5-year-olds, babies, 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds shipped in. And I was talking to the main guy that was at the airport, watching them land with private jets, and then just seriously escorted into a helicopter and then just going off into their private islands on Jeffrey Epstein's island. And I was like, okay, how many? He was like, thousands. Okay. This is the scale here that we're talking about here. This is huge. This is vast. This is big. And this is something that, of course, cannot be underplayed. I think me, you, and a lot of people will not allow this to be covered up. We need the truth here. We need the truth, not just for those thousands of children that were hurt here, but those thousands of children that are continued to be hurt now.
We ever going to get it?
No, I don't think we will. And that's the kind of sad realization. I think, listen, I think as soon as Donald Trump was elected, a lot of the files, weren't kept. You can't expect criminals to, incriminate themselves. I don't think the files are at the FBI. I think they're at the CIA, right? I think they're at MI5. I think they're at the Mossad headquarters, right? I think they're at different places and different locations. But even when they are there, they're not officially writing, "Dear Diary, today we stole this many children from this high school and then we procured them to whoever it might be." I don't think they're doing that. I thought legitimately that there was a whistleblower. I thought that there was someone within the old administration that said, I got all the documents, I got all the receipts, I got some proof here. That didn't happen here. We got a letter saying, please give us your stuff. And the FBI is not going to incriminate themselves. So I think the administration is stuck in a very tough position right now, because they kind of overpromised here. The FBI made sure that they didn't get anything. The one FBI agent that actually held information back was actually forced to retire. And then he got a round of applause from all of the people as he was leaving the office, which I thought was just extremely weird here, as I think there should have been a bigger investigation and potential obstruction of justice charges here if we were taking this seriously. I think some people are and this is why the rumors of a conspiracy are so very vast here, sadly. And I think we have every right to be skeptical, and I think we have every right to believe that this is a bigger conspiracy than we even imagined it to be.
I just want to bring up one interesting little point here and get your take on it, Luke, because again, you've done so much research here. You've gone to Epstein's island, you filmed it, you were one of the first people to hop on the island and actually show us what it was. Here's this remarkable headline from Alex Acosta. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. And that's why this guy who should have spent the rest of his life rotting in prison, we wouldn't even be talking about him, right? Because he was already convicted of these crimes. We wouldn't even be talking about him. Nobody would care. Nobody would even know about Epstein. He would have just been put away in a hole somewhere. But the federal prosecutor was told he belongs to intel and to shut up. Dershowitz was on the program, and I asked him about this. And it's the craziest answer ever. He was like, oh, yeah, I don't know why the intel agencies would work with Epstein. He was an unreliable person, except for that one time when I was in Israel. And Epstein called me and said, I want to meet with leaders of the Israeli government. And there might have been a few Mossad agents there. And I set up the meeting. And Epstein flew in. And that's what happened. And I was like, well, what an interesting thing to say, right? Like Alan Dershowitz. what's your take on all this, man?
And,
You know,
and
like,
then we know the former Israeli prime minister also was going and hanging out at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in New York City. That's also a very kind of strange incident and circumstance
yeah.
that, of course, we're not even talking about. We're talking about royalty. We're talking about prime ministers. We're talking about presidents. We're talking about some of the most powerful people going into a surveillance castle where they were bringing in small children where they could do whatever they wanted to with that had surveillance and video cameras everywhere. Okay, that's how our system runs. That's how our entire system runs. And the fact that we still don't have the legitimate answers here is extremely concerning, because then you kind of come to the realization that these people are more powerful than anybody, than everybody, including the people that promised to release them. I kind of wanted to ask you to get your perspective, because you've done so much good research and good work in this specific story as well. Do you think we're going to get any kind of major disclosures here?
We're close with Bongino. You know, he's been a bit of a mentor back in, back in just like this getting started streaming days. We're close with Cash. He's been a regular on the program. I mean, if I know one thing, I know that those guys aren't deep state, and that they took massive pay cuts to go do what they're doing. But I believe that there's going to be powers. I take the pragmatic look at all this, and the pragmatic look is look at what we can do with this information. I'm not saying they're corrupt. I don't think the decision rests on Bongino and Cash. I think that the decision has been buried 20 layers deeper than them, quite frankly, because everybody knows in DC, these political appointees, they're all replaceable and they come and go. And so all you have to do is just keep things just out of the light, and they'll never touch them. And some people, it's just too big of a problem, right, to touch. Some people, it's just third rails, right? Why would you want that smoke? And the pragmatism of having this information is that any administration can control the most powerful people on earth and keep them in line, whether it's royal families, prime ministers, billionaires, or banks. And that information, it has a utility to it. And that people are going to like, and that also when you destroy Bill Gates, right, when you prove what Bill Gates actually is and you do it on video and everyone can see it, then Microsoft, which is one of the Mag 7, well, that stock goes through the floor, right? Like, and the stock market crashes. And so I'm trying to like live in the real world and think about like, what was Epstein providing? What was the service he was providing? Why did he get all the money? What was this all about? And of course, it was all about the biggest criminal enterprise on earth, our federal government, having leverage over the only things that could really threaten it, which are billionaires, banks, and some of these powerful institutions. And what's going to have to happen? What kind of apocalyptic event is going to have to happen for them to give that up? That's the question.
Yeah, no, I've been praying for their safety, their security, and their courage, because we have to understand here, as you mentioned here, there's many layers to this, and it's far more sophisticated, far more complicated than we even understand. We're still just scratching the surface here, because there's some weird, wild stuff that I think a lot of people are saying, well, the general public's not ready for it. I'm just saying, we are. I think the demand, the kind of thirst for this information, just to unravel some of the kind of more unfair, more corrupt, more just insane scenarios that all of us are forced to kind of live through here, I think it needs to be exposed. Will it? I don't think it is. That's sadly also my kind of realization here. There's a lot of moving parts at play here. And to me, this has been a story that I've been following for 15 years, talking about it extensively. And it's the story that has a lot of people that, sadly are blackpilled. And I think there's reason to be kind of blackpilled from all of this here. But again, wild story here that I think is only going to get a lot more wilder from the people's kind of demand here for the truth here, because I don't see this story going away.
I guess, I saw this thing, and it's just something I wanted to ask you while you were on the stream here. I saw something that made me snap on the live the other day, buried at the very bottom of the manifest of tech overlords who were traveling with President Trump to the Middle East. And that's an elite trip to get on, right? You're going to go meet with all these sultans and all these kings and all these trillionaires there in the Mideast. And buried deep down in the name is Reid freaking Hoffman. I just couldn't believe it, Luke. And I just snapped on air. I was like, I cannot believe the guy who funded all the lawfare against Trump is invited to fly on Air Force One with Trump to the Middle East to go like lock in. And of course, this guy, if you don't know who Reid Hoffman is, he's this sick, disgusting degenerate who openly bragged about how he wanted to assassinate Trump if he could. He was an Epstein client. He was constantly with Jeffrey Epstein. He's a filthy, disgusting, despicable creature. He founded LinkedIn. So he has like just barges of money. And I watched that and I looked at that and I asked a question I'd like to ask you. Like, so this is the guy that funded all the lawfare against Trump. He's clearly implicated in Epstein, in the Epstein. Like if there's one guy that you're guaranteed is going to be in the tapes, it's got to be Reid Hoffman, right? Like how useful would that be as a leverage point, as a leverage chit? You know, I hate to play these games, but like live in the real world. Like here's this guy who's totally now at your mercy. You can destroy him. He's done everything he can to destroy you. And you have the chit, right? You have the thing that will end him, right? And you can get anything you want. And you run that game theory in your head and you're like, well, you know, that's the utility of this information.
110%. You are right. Axios has a very interesting article talking about how Reid Hoffman had to apologize for the role he played in the Epstein-linked donations to MIT. So we're talking about some of the top universities in America also being involved here. And this is why this kind of Trump war between the universities is interesting, because all these universities that he's kind of going after have very weird links to a lot of the kind of predator class. But if you look at these universities, they're kind of woke mind viruses that have created these crazy leftist liberal Democrats that are not just using lawfare, but violence more and more. There's a level of orchestration to all of this and pay to play that I think is interesting. I think, you know, Donald Trump here, there's a lot of kind of questions now surrounding Epstein, surrounding having Reid Hoffman on your trip here, giving him deals, helping him network in Saudi Arabia, of all places.
Crazy.
There's also a Bilderberg connection here as well. The Bilderberg conference is going to be in a few days in Sweden, by the way. I'm trying to, you know, figure out funds in order to try to go over there to report on everything. But Reid Hoffman is a major player within the Bilderberg organization. So is Alex Karp. So is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel also, surprise connections, received money from Jeffrey Epstein. So this guy's everywhere. And now, especially with the latest developments that are happening with Palantir, another kind of interlinked kind of connection. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein knew all of these people. He was meeting with these people all the time in Silicon Valley. Sergey Brin, all of them. So with him being within these kind of inner circles of the tech elite here, there definitely are a lot more connections, even to Elon Musk and Epstein, that we don't know about yet. So if I'm Donald Trump right now, I'm leaking all of it. I'm like, oh, you want to say I'm a part of the Epstein list? Let's talk about all the Silicon Valley meetings with Epstein and Elon Musk. Let's talk about those and a bunch of other Silicon Valley people. But at the same time, I think what you're bringing up is worth considering, because it would make all of the tech stocks go down dramatically.
Right, crash the economy. Like this had the power of this. This is the power of this evil predator. Even
client list, and not just
dead. Yeah, 6 years dead. It's still the power.
Not just Silicon Valley, but also the big banks. All of the big banks skirted all the rules and regulations and said, "Oh, you're a registered S offender, but yeah, we'll let you move millions of dollars here without any accountability or track record of." Big banks had to settle with the family members of the victims here, because of how they were able to allow this kind of money laundering, orchestrated kind of event play out throughout many years, where they just said, yeah, don't follow any rules. If you're trying to get $10,000 out of the bank in cash, they're going to have you there for like an hour. But Epstein was just able to move millions of dollars in and out, no questions asked. That raised some very serious suspicions and questions. So right there, the big banks, Silicon Valley, the Reid Hoffmans, the Bill Gateses, big money players. I believe that, you know, I see what you're talking about here, and for me, still the conclusion is release it all, get it all out there. Let's have a cleanse. Let's
obviously.
yeah.
I don't serve in government, and I never will. I'm just doing like as I'm watching what's happening with the Trump administration, and they're like sitting here trying to put the pin back in the grenade, right, with this Epstein thing, because they all promise, they're all on the record talking about we'll release it day one, right? Like, and obviously, yes, it's a live grenade, and it's not gonna, I agree with you. It's not gonna.
I'm like,
I'm trying to figure out like why.
Let it all go.
Yeah, like I'm trying to figure out why, because it's like we go why. Listen, and so that's the mental gymnastics that I'm going through.
If a company is going to fail because of their connections to hurting small children, they deserve to fail.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm using very careful language here.
I'm not arguing in favor of it. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be pragmatic and like figure it out.
But there's some Machiavellian people out there that are like, no, we shouldn't release this because of A and B. And I'm saying these companies are very unfair, unscrupulous, very immoral companies that have also censored us, that have also attacked us, that have also waged war against any type of correct thinking, especially during the coof years in 2020 and 2021, when people were screaming solutions, where people were telling people exactly what was going on, when people were telling people how to not get sick and hurt. We were all censored. We were denied the ability to talk to each other. Those Silicon Valley tech companies were the ones that orchestrated so much human harm on everyone. They deserve to be called out. They deserve to collapse. And I hope Donald Trump understands this. And I hope Donald Trump understands that the dominoes that will fall after this Epstein disclosure deserve to fall. They need to fall. And it needs to be done as soon as possible so there's less leverage on him. I think he's innocent when it comes to the Epstein stuff, but the fact that he hasn't released it does put that doubt in a lot of people's minds. I don't want that doubt in people's minds, and I don't want those weaponized predators still out there that are still hurting children to be active politically. Let the dominoes fall where they may be, and let's just keep moving forward as best as we can. Let's clean house here, and let's live a totally different new life where no longer can we get political power off of the souls of small children.
Yeah. Preach. We have your Epstein Island tour loaded up here and your channel. So I'm going to direct everybody over to Luke's channel along with his X page. But since we have your little tour loaded up here, can you explain to our audience what you found when you went to Epstein Island?
There was a doorway into the ground that I thought was the most interesting. I mean, there was a bunch of weird kind of gargoyle, occult, symbolic stuff there. I only was able to visit half of the island. The island is huge, but there's a lot of little nooks and crannies, a lot of weird type of things all over the place. But the biggest thing was a doorway into the ground that a lot of people were saying were there was tunnels there. There was a side door that everyone said was a tunnel. I made sure to go there. It wasn't a tunnel. It was kind of blocked off. It was cemented off. But there was a doorway in the middle next to that big kind of pyramid structure that was pretty strange and pretty weird. It was a very kind of crazy. We were the first ones to go there ever. And this was specifically after someone was flying a drone over the island, where it showed someone looking exactly like Jeffrey Epstein after his demise on that island. And this is what made us go there. We were seeing videos saying, hey, Epstein's alive. He's still on Epstein's island. Let's go. And I said, let's go there. Let's capture him. Let's capture him on camera. That was my kind of objective here. That was my kind of goal here. And that's why we decided to, risk it all and go on this mission and to try to document as much as we can. The video is about 20 minutes long. There's a bunch of little tidbits. There's a bunch of little like flight, visitor logs, things that we also filmed. And the whole thing was just absolutely a wild adventure, to say the least.
You got up real close to that temple. What's your take on what the temple was?
I think it was, if you look at a lot of these type of people, they love their occult symbology. They love their rituals. They love to do weird kind of juju energetic type of stuff here. There was also a huge compass next to this type of location. A lot of it is very reminiscent of kind of Freemasonic type of architecture and symbols. And, when we kind of look at that kind of scenario, it was, overlooking, there was also a fire pit there. It was, overlooking essentially the ocean there. It wasn't as impressive as it was from far away. The Golden Dome was removed, and the walls weren't as nice as they were up front. But I think this was truly a place where a lot of the kind of more weird stuff probably went down. Do I know exactly what happened there? No, and we can only extrapolate what we can here. But when we look at a lot of the kind of occult stuff, it does involve rituals, it does involve sacrifice, and does involve a lot of kind of occult, satanic, evil, devil worshiping type of stuff that, as we know, if you're willing to, of course, hurt small children, that is more of a kind of ritualistic type of practice that they see as a way of corrupting and taking away innocence from babies and small children. There's a demonic force behind it that I think is pretty clear and pretty evident, whether it's overt or not. It's there, and it's something that only a lot of people within the inner circles of secret societies kind of really know about.
It is a demonic force. Did you feel demon energy? Did you feel the energy of evil on that island?
I was freaked out. I'm like, we are on S Assault Island, where people get taken to have bad things done to them. Portal. That we voluntarily went to. So,
portal to hell. You're in a portal to hell, like an interdimensional portal to hell is where you were. You were in like a demon portal. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the energy was extremely dark, extremely dense, but also that probably could have been my anxiety, because you're like, oh, anything could happen to me now. You're on the devil's kind of playground. You're in a playground where they could just they do whatever they want to there. Okay. This is a place where police officers don't show up to help you, right? There's no one coming to help you when you're there. And then Epstein's still alive. According to this drone footage, I was like, anything could happen here. So obviously I was very scared. I was very freaked out. And I just, was trying to give myself the courage to stay calm, to document, and to report on as much as I could here. And obviously, yes, it was extremely dark, extremely dense. And I think a portion of that was just my fear.
It's odd that the temple was all boarded up. Strange.
Yeah.
Where'd the gold dome go? Right? Like who decommissions the gold dome? Like what company does that exactly?
Yeah.
Like, who do you call to decommission your golden satanic sacrifice dome? Like, what, is there like a specialty? You can get that on Amazon,
And the island was so huge. It had their own ambulances. They had huge construction vehicles. I mean, this was a huge, huge island that was far bigger than a lot of people expected it to be. When you're there and you see the size and scope of it, it's something else.
Wow. Well, Luke, we'll have you back for this topic. I have a feeling, sadly, that we'll have to talk about this topic a lot.
Yeah.
There's and many other things. And we just cannot encourage you enough to follow Luke Rudkowski and his work. We have his channels up. As I have said many times, Luke Rudkowski is probably the most right man in all of media. Probably the most correct man in all of media. Challenged maybe only by Alex Jones. I'm not sure. But between Alex Tucker and Luke, you can't go wrong, and that's good company. Godspeed, Luke.
Thank you, Benny. Really appreciate you. Keep up the great work as well, and best of luck with all of your endeavors. Thank you so much for having me on.
Amen.